thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us this afternoon. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Naadiya Adams, and I'm reporting representing the NIS Media Group, which is Laudium Sun and GlowTV, among others. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss with you, I've just got my screen on the other side here. I'm sure you're aware that, just to place on record, that this interview will be for public consumption.
I'm aware.
Okay, so jumping right into it, just to confirm, the letter that was published in the Laudium Sun this week, I believe you received a link to it as well, and I'm sure you've seen that it's been viewed by over 300,000 people. But what we do want to confirm is that it was given exclusively to Laudium Sun for publication.
Correct. It was not given to any other media for publication. It was given only to Laudium Sun for publication. There was one other party that proofread it for me, but in terms of publication and to media, it was only given to the Laudium Sun.
Okay,
and yes, it was me that wrote it.
And I'm sure that you saw that it was leaked. And how do you respond to some of the comments that were on there?
I have not seen the comments that were on there, so I don't know what the comments look like. You can maybe tell me a few if you'd like my reaction to them. But overall, I know that there's a lot of negativity surrounding this, obviously, because I left without warning, and you know, my social media was taken down. So I know that there's a lot of negativity. I don't know detail on what the negativity, you know, specifically is, or what the comments were specifically.
Okay, so obviously there's been a lot of backlash, a lot of people saying hello darlings, condemn, a lot of people angry. I believe that over 200 cases have been opened with the South African police. And maybe is there anything that you would like to elaborate on the statement that you released this week?
So everything that was in the statement is factual. I believe that my bank statements were also leaked. So, you know, it can be verified. In terms of the statement itself, everything that I've said in there is the truth. I literally got into trouble for various reasons. One, that my package prices were too low. Two, was obviously COVID hit really badly, and, you know, we had to do refunds previously. We were one of the few companies that offered full refunds. All of these things added up to a bottom line that I could not meet. And so I would obviously then advertise packages in the hopes that I could recover from it, you know, and continue forward, running the business, giving people trips. But it was obviously a very stupid way to do business, which is something I obviously understand now after the fact when things came crashing down. But, you know, in terms of, you know, there's something I have to explain also. In terms of the statement, it was not meant to be arrogant on any level, or to shift the blame, or to cause more undue stress to people. It was merely to explain what happened. I suffered trade losses, and I compounded those trade losses by stupid business. It was never my intention to con people, or to take people's money and not fulfill trips. We fulfilled dozens of trips over the last 4 years, dozens and dozens of trips. We made many, many dreams come true with our cheaper offerings. And again, like I say, it was a stupid way to do business, and it does not justify anything that's happened or people that have lost their money. But at the end of the day, it's happened now, and I need to deal with the consequences of this, and which is something I'm aware of. But there were other things that arose out of the statement also, where my bank statements were leaked online, and I believe it was on the Telegram group that has quite a few followers as well. People questioning why I paid money to various sources. Monies that were paid to people like my mom or people like Laik were repayments for loans that they gave me to pay back refunds, to keep the business going. They were not aware of the extent of it. I reached out to people in my life to say, help me, I need to fulfill a trip, or help me, I need to sort out some refunds and I've got a bit of a problem. So these were obviously legitimately people that were concerned about me and that were pretty much innocent in this whole scenario, and they're being lambasted. And that's apart from the people that I've hurt, that I owe a lot of money to. I'm really, really sad that these people are being hurt for trying to help, to pay back refunds, to make sure the trips happened. it's really, really sad overall. This is really a terrible situation. And when I got a series of death threats on Monday last week, my first instinct was not, let me take people's money and run. There is no money. You can see it from the bank statements. There is no money to run with. My first instinct was protect my family. I cannot have, they said things like, we will kill you in front of your children. We will torture you and kill you in front of your children. What mother is going to stand for that? What mother will accept that?
Yes, I hear you.
So,
okay, so there have been reports that obviously that you've left South Africa. Is that true? Were you trading from South Africa? I believe you also were trading from Dubai.
but I haven't lived in South Africa for almost 3 years now. So I've seen reports that said I fled the country. I have not fled the country. I was not living in South Africa. And what's strange to me is that almost everybody that's ever booked with me, everyone that ever followed my social media knows this. I lived in Turkey for about a year. I was there 2020, the whole of 2020. December 2020, I moved to Dubai. My Dubai entity is completely separate from the South African entity. It wasn't trading in the South African market. I didn't leave South Africa suddenly on Monday. I've been out of the country for years. I was in South Africa last in November last year. So that's a very confusing one for me because it's public knowledge that I have not been living in South Africa for 3 years now.
Okay, and back again to backlash coming from a lot of people claiming that they are owed a lot of money for holidays that they had obviously booked that did not materialize. Is there any game plan in terms of paying these people back? How do you foresee it?
Look, obviously, like my statement said, it became a problem that compounded a problem. So we obviously sold more packages to help the problem. And this obviously just turned into a bit of a nightmare and a bit of a snowstorm. So, I took advice and the advice that came about most often was you need to go into liquidation if these people are to see any of their money. And that's not an easy thing. I've said it before. I built this from nothing, trying to give people affordable travel in a time when it's not possible to travel affordably. And it was never my intention people are saying things like to con people out of their money, to build a nest egg. There's nothing of the sort. There is no nest egg. I'm not sitting with a ton of money. There is no money. But the advice that I've been given, which is obviously very valid, is to go into liquidation so that at least something can be recovered and paid out to people. So if you ask if there's a plan, if I'm sitting on millions of rands that I can pay back to people, no. I'm not sitting on millions of rands that I can pay back to people, but through the liquidation process, I'm not entirely clear how the liquidation process works. I understand that I need to lodge a liquidation process and then they take all the assets of the company and whatever money is anywhere and they put it into a pot, and this obviously gets split up and it will be paid to all the creditors. That's the basic view of how this works. So I'm pretty much relying on the legal process, the liquidation process, for people to be able to see any of their money back, which is what they say to me is the likelihood here. People will get their money out of the liquidation process.
Okay, so for a moment, look, a lot of people have come out saying it's a pyramid scheme and it may have been illegal. That's what people are saying and people are thinking. And many people believe that it is. So for a moment, assuming that it is, am I understanding that all transactions will be looked at by the law if that is the case? Do you agree that people who may have benefited, including bloggers, including people who had it at heavily discounted rates, will need to pay back that money?
Sorry, I don't know if I'm clear about what you're asking. Are you asking me where the bloggers didn't receive money? Let's put it that way. The bloggers didn't receive money. They received free
the trips. Yes, is
yeah.
that right? They received the trips. So would they be held liable for anything that they may have benefited from during this entire process over 3 years?
I can't imagine that they would. From what I gather about the process is the liquidation process goes back 6 months. And it looks at, for 6 months, what was paid out from the business in terms of, I don't know if it's just refund holders. From what I gather, it's just people that were paid refunds. It has to go back into a pot and then split equally amongst everybody. Our liquidator attorneys and that have the lists of all the people who were due refunds, those that were paid refunds, obviously all our bank statements and things. I don't know how the law works in that instance, but from what I gather, it's a 6-month period retrospectively. I don't know how they would recover trips booked and paid for years ago. I don't see that as being a possibility or a likelihood. People that paid discounted would not have to uppay, or bloggers that went on the trip free for marketing for us would not have to uppay, from what I know.
And would you say it is a pyramid scheme, or it was a pyramid scheme?
I don't know what the definition of a pyramid scheme is in terms of what you're asking me, but my intention was never a pyramid scheme. So if I ran into a loss and I sold another trip to pay for a current trip, maybe that qualifies, the definition of that qualifies as a pyramid scheme, but the intent was never for it to be a pyramid scheme. The intent was always for trips to go ahead, for people to have an amazing trip and to come back. And when I started to get into trouble, I obviously advertised more trips in order to fulfill those trips. And so if that's the definition, then that's what it is, but it was never the intent.
Okay, and obviously a lot of bloggers have sort of attacked you. How do you respond to that?
So the attacks that came out, they're obviously feeling emotional, they're feeling upset. We built a relationship over many years. There's specifically one blogger who I built a friendship with over many, many years, and she's obviously feeling very betrayed and very upset by everything that's happened. But they're obviously reacting to me, to the notion that I've run away with people's monies, which is not the case. I think a lot of the reason that I chose to do this interview also to clear the air on that I did not take people's money and run. I did not run. I switched off all my social media and I took my family to a place of safety. And that's what I did. I did not run away. The idea was to just be quiet for a couple of days so that people could not follow through with beheading me in front of my children, torturing me in front of my children, making sure my children saw my blood. It's not something you want. As a mother, the first thing when somebody says to you is, your children will see your blood spilled. We will behead you in front of your children. My baby is 7 years old. What was I expected to do? Just stay and say, ha, here I am, come for me. It's not something you can logically do as a mother. I've got children, minor children. These children's pictures were plastered all over social media. That's dangerous in this day and age, but people didn't think about that. All they saw was anger and emotion, which I can fully understand. I can fully understand. But at the same time, understand that you have built a relationship with me over years. The bookers have built a relationship with me. They need to understand that I would not simply do this. And if you're looking at my bank statements over the last 3 days, you can see that I've paid millions and millions in refunds. If I stayed and paid refunds for 3 months, why would I suddenly run?
So another question that I have is, why shut down all the social media accounts? I mean, I understand being scared and running or going into hiding, fear for your life. I do understand that. But I think that's also what raised so many alarms in so many people's heads, is that the social media accounts went
understandable. But I think also, we influenced a lot by TV and things. So in my mind at that time, when you're having a mental breakdown, my fear was they can track me through everything. So I disabled my WhatsApp, I disabled my Instagram, because my fear was they can track me through everything. And I just wanted to protect my family and make sure that I had a fighting chance to come back and say, listen, this is what happened. I'm so sorry. I will make a way for people to get their money back in whatever form now, obviously with the liquidation process. But at the time when my mind was, people are coming to kill me in front of my children, it was take down everywhere that they could track you. Take down everywhere that they could find you and kill you in front of your children. It wasn't, I'm taking down social media because I want to run with people's monies. If I had the sum of 100 million, let's face it, if you had that amount of money, it comes with a certain level of arrogance, right? That people can't find you. So I wouldn't have resorted to taking down the. So I mean, it's a very stupid move. I'm not a very stupid woman. I made stupid mistakes, but obviously taking down your social media alerted the whole dunya that you are out of there. So I'm not a stupid woman. If this is planned and preconceived and people are saying it's been a plan for 4 years, why would I do something so stupid?
Yes, I hear you. Would you be willing to make yourself available to talk to the police at all?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, our liquidation process obviously needs to get initiated. I think that's the first part of this that needs to happen so that people can start to at least have a chance of seeing their money back. Once the liquidator is all that, I don't know exactly how the process works because as soon as I file for liquidation, it's out of my hands. I'm no longer the director of my company. That's what I understood. I'm no longer in control of them processing all of these things. And I think obviously there's criminal cases that are opened about me absconding, but I have not absconded, like I've explained repeatedly. So I don't know that, I mean, if the police reach out to me, then of course I'd speak to them. I'm not running. Like I said, I went into hiding to protect my family. And when I felt like the immediate threat had passed, I went online and I saw that it had this huge impact. Where people were sending me further death threats, where people were saying to me, we're coming to get you, we're coming to find you. And then I started the procedure. I took some legal advice and I started the proceedings of actually figuring out how I can pay people back the money that I owe them. So yes, if they reach out to me, then, but of course, but by things like, I mean, for me, how protected am I? Because firstly, I had death threats. Secondly, there's influencers, not the same influencer who I said was my friend, but there are other influencers with close to 100,000 followers that are circulating my children's pictures to the police. And the police are not replying and saying, this is not legal. You cannot circulate the pictures of minor children. You cannot. And then the third aspect of this, the media jumped on this immediately and started to report, not saying alleged 100 million, saying Taz Moosa has fled the country with 100 million. All unverified, all not factual, because I did not flee the country. I've not lived in the country for almost 3 years, number one. And number two, the figure is nowhere near 100 million. The figure in total is approximately 35 million, and that includes investors 10 million, forthcoming trips 10 million, and about 26 million in refunds due. And of that 26 million, at least 10 million has been already refunded.
Okay, and just in terms of those who did benefit, would you be keen to divulge some of the names of the people who did benefit?
When you say benefit, in what sense? Because nobody really benefited.
Nobody really benefited. The people.
Well, it's a broad statement. So let me not say nobody really benefited. They benefited in terms of trips. So obviously, I mean, it's public knowledge that all the influencers that worked with us went on free trips. Their families went on free trips. Their extended family, where they sold sufficient tickets. Our model was you sell tickets and then you go on the trip. You sell more tickets and then obviously you take a partner with that sort of thing. So they benefited to the extent that they went on free trips that they advertised for. But when you say disclose some of the people, you're obviously looking or referring to what they say on the Telegram group that I stash money with my mother, or I stash money with my friends, or that's not the case. If my friend gave me a loan to pay back refund holders, then I paid back the loan, or I paid back the earnings on the loan. If my mom lent me money, I paid her back. It wasn't them getting cash payouts from the company or stashing money. There is no money. That's the thing. There is no money. What will be recovered and paid to people now is obviously part of that liquidation process and how the law works in that area, which is a bit gray to me. I don't fully understand it. Maybe experts would understand that better.
Okay, I'm wrapping up. I just want to ask you one more thing. So with regards to, like I say, those ones who did benefit, right? If they received a trip or whatever it may be, how are those things funded? And should they not be, is it not fair for them to at least pay back some of that to the people who actually lost money?
So if you look at our trips for the last 6 months, I think there was possibly 1 or maybe 2 facilitated trips, because obviously we got to a point where I said it just does not make sense to send anybody on a trip when there is no money for this, I need to fulfill obviously the trips and not, benefits to influencers. And so we stopped sending anybody to run these trips because obviously, like a resort, everything is taken care of on resorts. There wasn't really a need for it. So I don't know that they would need to be held liable for a trip that they worked towards. Because a lot of what I'm seeing in the marketplace says influencers should be held liable, and I'm not absolving anybody of anything, or I'm not placing all the blame on myself, or I'm not placing all the blame on myself. But what I am saying is, if a company, as an influencer, if a company offers you an incentive and they say you can get a GHD free if you market 100 posts, and then you market the 100 posts, the free GHD becomes your due. So if I said to people, market and get me 20 bookers, and they marketed and got me 20 bookers, the trip becomes their due.
Okay, Tasneem, shukran so much for speaking to us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to explain. I hope, can I just make a quick comment?
Sure, go ahead.
I understand that a lot of people are very angry and very upset. I understand a lot of people have saved for years for these trips. It was never my intention to rob anyone or to con anyone or to take anybody's hard-earned money. This is just a stupid business model that ran away from me, that if I could have avoided it or gone back and, I would definitely change things. I'm not sitting with anybody's money. I'm not intending to con anyone out of their money. I'm trying to do this through the legal process of liquidating and filing for this company to be in a position, obviously, to be able to pay back people at least some of their money. And inshallah, I hope that materializes and we can go through this liquidation process. But at the same time, death threats to my family and death threats to my children and death threats to my mom really don't serve any purpose in this whole process. And we are going to be applying to the South African authorities, obviously sending them all of these death threats and things, obviously for some action to be taken in that regard.
Okay, thank you so much. And we do, of course, hope that the police come right and they find the money, or at least try and retrieve some of it.
Okay, thank you so much, Nadia.